You're at a party, a networking event, or maybe just waiting for your coffee next to a stranger. You've already covered the weather. You've talked about what you both do for work. And then it hits. That slow, creeping, all-consuming void. The dreaded awkward silence. You can feel your brain scrambling, searching for anything to say next. The other person is doing the exact same thing. It's a silent, shared panic. What if I told you there was a way out of this small talk prison? A way to not just dodge the awkwardness, but to turn these moments into opportunities for genuine, memorable connection? Well, science says there is, and it's easier than you think. The key isn't being a smooth talker or a social butterfly. It's a simple psychological shift that can unlock a level of connection you might not have thought possible with anyone you meet. Let's be honest, most of our conversations are just paddling in the shallow end of the pool. How was your weekend? Good, you? Busy? Yeah, same. It's a script. It's safe, it's predictable, and it's utterly forgettable. We go through this ritual day in and day out with colleagues, acquaintances, and sometimes even with the people we care about most. We stick to the surface because we have a deep primal fear of things getting weird. We're afraid we'll be judged, that we'll overshare, or that we'll ask a question that just lands with a thud. This fear is so common it practically runs our social lives. We tell ourselves it's just easier this way. It's polite. But what's the real cost of living in a state of perpetual small talk? It's more than just a few boring conversations. It's a quiet epidemic of disconnection. It's walking away from a party full of people feeling more alone than when you arrived. It's knowing dozens of people by name, but feeling like you don't truly know anyone at all. We are social creatures by design, wired to connect with others. Substantive conversation is the very tool nature gave us for that purpose. And by avoiding it, we're fundamentally working against our own happiness. And here's the scientific gut punch. That empty feeling after a day of shallow chats isn't just in your head. It's a documented psychological phenomenon. Researchers have found a direct link between the amount of meaningful conversation a person has and their overall happiness. One groundbreaking study by psychologist Matthias Mehl literally eavesdropped on people's lives, recording snippets of their daily conversations. The results were stunning. The happiest participants had more than double the number of deep, substantive conversations, and only about a third of the amount of small talk compared to the unhappiest participants. Think about that. Twice, meaningful talk. So when we choose the safe route, we're actively choosing a path that leads to less well-being. We're missing out on the very interactions that foster trust, curb loneliness, and create a sense of belonging. And get this, neuroscientists have found that during a high-quality conversation, the brain activity of the two speakers actually starts to sync up in a phenomenon called neural coupling. You literally get on the same wavelength. This is the biological bedrock of empathy and trust. It's how connection is physically built in our brains. The ultimate irony, our fear is completely misplaced. Study after study, including research from the American Psychological Association, has shown that we consistently underestimate how much other people want to have deep conversations. We think it'll be awkward, but when people are put into experiments and told to have deeper conversations with strangers, they report feeling more connected, happier, and way less awkward than they predicted. We are all standing on opposite sides of a canyon, wanting to connect, but wrongly assuming the other person wants to stay put. So, how do we bridge that canyon? How do we break free from the script? It's not about memorizing a list of clever lines. It's about adopting a simple, three-step psychological framework. This is your blueprint for turning any interaction into an opportunity for real connection. The 3 steps are: first, the mindset shift, overcoming the awkwardness illusion. Second, the art of invitation, asking beautiful questions. And third, the connection engine, mastering the loop of listening and sharing. Let's break it down. Step 1, the mindset shift, overcoming the awkwardness illusion. The single biggest barrier to deep conversation is the fear of it being awkward. We have this inner voice that says, if I ask a personal question, they'll think I'm weird, or if I share something real, they'll back away. But as we've seen, the science tells a different story. The awkwardness is largely an illusion, a cognitive distortion we've accepted as fact. Your first job is to consciously tear down that belief. Think of it this way. You are probably not the only person in the conversation who is bored with small talk. The person across from you is likely just as trapped in the same social script, wishing for an exit. By taking a small risk, you aren't being weird. You are being a liberator. You're giving both of you permission to have a more interesting interaction. A powerful mental reframe is to switch from a threat mindset to an opportunity mindset. Instead of your brain asking, what if this gets awkward? Consciously ask it, what if this becomes meaningful? Or what might I learn from this person? This simple switch changes everything. It reframes the interaction from a social test you might fail into a collaborative exploration you can both enjoy. Another part of this shift is to assume generosity. Assume the other person is kind, Owen, and just as interested in connecting as you are. We often project our own insecurities onto others, assuming they'll be critical or uninterested. But what if you started from the assumption that they want to share, that they would welcome a question that goes beyond the superficial? Here's your actionable tip. The next time you're talking to someone, make a conscious decision to be the one who is brave enough to be interesting. Before you even open your mouth, tell yourself, this person probably has an incredible story, a unique passion, or a fascinating perspective that I'll never discover if I just talk about the weather. Let genuine curiosity be your guide, not fear. Don't see it as your job to impress them. See it as your privilege to discover them. This isn't about being reckless. It's about recalibrating your perception of risk. The risk isn't that the conversation will get awkward. The real risk is that it will stay forgettable. Step 2, the art of invitation, asking beautiful questions. Once you've adjusted your mindset, you need the right tools. The primary tool for deepening a conversation is the question, but not just any question. Most of us ask closed-ended logistical questions that can be answered with a single word. Are you busy at work? Yes. End of story. This is conversational quicksand. The key is to ask what I call beautiful questions. A beautiful question is an open-ended question that invites a story, a feeling, or a reflection. It doesn't just ask what, as it asks how or why. It can't be answered with a simple yes or no. Consider the difference. Instead of asking, did you have a good weekend? Try asking, what was a highlight from your weekend? The first is a locked door. The second is an open invitation to share something positive and memorable. Instead of asking, so what do you do? A question that often reduces a person to their job title, try asking, what's a project you're working on these days that's really energizing you? Or, what's the most interesting challenge you're trying to solve right now? These questions honor the person's experience, not just their label. They treat them like an expert on their own life, which they are. The classic example of this is the famous study by psychologist Arthur Aron. He brought pairs of strangers into his lab to ask each other 36 increasingly personal questions. Questions like, what would constitute a perfect day for you? And what is your most treasured memory? The result? After just 45 minutes, these strangers reported feeling as close to each other as they did to people in their closest relationships. Some participants in the original study even got married. This just shows the incredible power of intentional questions to accelerate intimacy. Now you don't need to carry a list of 36 questions in your pocket. The principle is what matters. Your goal is to move from questions of fact to questions of feeling and meaning. Here are a few beautiful questions you can adapt. If you're talking about work, instead of, are you busy? Try, what's been taking up most of your brain power lately? Instead of, do you like your job? Try, what's a skill you're getting to use in your work that you really enjoy? If you're talking about travel, instead of, where did you go? Try, what's an experience from that trip that's really stuck with you? Instead of, did you have fun? Try, what did that trip teach you? If you're talking about life in general, what's something you've been learning about recently just for the fun of it? What's a small thing that brought you joy this week? These questions work because they signal genuine curiosity, grant the other person the floor to talk about something meaningful, and require a bit of vulnerability to answer, which is the currency of connection. Your actionable takeaway is to have just 2 or 3 of these go-to beautiful questions in your back pocket. The next time a conversation lull hits, instead of panicking, see it as your cue. Deploy one and watch what happens. And hey, if you're finding this framework useful for unlocking better conversations, consider subscribing to the channel. Over 1 million people have already joined our community dedicated to applying the science of psychology to live better, more connected lives. I'd love for you to be a part of it. Just click that subscribe button. It's a small click that can lead to big changes. Step 3, the connection engine, the loop of listening and sharing. So you've shifted your mindset, you've asked a beautiful question, and the other person has just shared something real with you. Now what? This is the most crucial part, where the magic of connection really happens. It's a 2-part engine: active listening and reciprocal sharing. First, active listening. Most of us don't really listen. We just wait for our turn to talk. We're busy formulating our response, thinking of a clever story, or trying to connect their point back to ourselves. Active listening is the opposite. It's listening not to respond, but to understand. It's giving someone the gift of your full, undivided attention. Practically, this means putting your phone away, making eye contact, and tuning into their words, their tone, and their body language. But the most powerful active listening technique is the follow-up question. Follow-up questions are proof that you were listening. They show you're not just running through a script, but you're genuinely engaged with what they are saying. If they say, "A highlight of my weekend was finally finishing a difficult book," a poor response would be, "Oh, cool, I read a book once." A great active listening response would be, "That's awesome. What was difficult about it?" Or, "What was it about the book that made you want to stick with it?" See the difference? You're staying in their story. You're handing the microphone back, showing them that their experience is important. The second part of the engine is reciprocal sharing. A deep conversation can't be an interview. It has to be a two-way street. If someone answers your beautiful question with a vulnerable, personal story, the connection will stall if you don't offer something of similar weight in return. This is the delicate dance of conversation. It's about matching their level of openness. It doesn't have to be a dark secret. It just has to be genuine. If they share a story about a challenge they're facing at work, you could respond by saying, "But thank you for sharing that. It reminds me of a time I struggled with." This creates a bond of shared experience. It says, "You're not alone in this. I get it." This process of mutual escalating vulnerability is what builds trust layer by layer. The actionable technique here is called echo and add. First, you echo their sentiment to show you've heard them. "Wow, that sounds incredibly rewarding." Then you add a small related piece of your own experience. "It makes me think about how I felt when I finally got my garden to grow." Atos, you're not hijacking the conversation. You're connecting your world to theirs. This loop, asking a good question, listening actively, asking follow-up questions, and then sharing a related piece of yourself, is the self-sustaining engine of deep connection. We've covered a lot, so let's bring it back to that moment. You're standing there, the small talk has died, and the silence is starting to feel heavy. But now, you have a new blueprint. Instead of panicking, you take a breath. You start with step 1, the mindset shift. You remind yourself the fear of awkwardness is an illusion, and the person in front of you likely wants a real conversation as much as you do. Then you move to step 2, the art of invitation. You reach into your back pocket for a beautiful question. Not, "How are you?" but, "What's something you're excited about these days?" And finally, when they answer, you engage step 3, the connection engine. You listen intently, not to reply, but to understand. You ask a follow-up question that proves you were paying attention. And when the moment is right, you share a small piece of your own story, creating that crucial loop of reciprocity. This isn't a magic trick, it's a skill. And like any skill, it gets better with practice. It might feel clunky at first, but every time you choose curiosity over fear, you are strengthening your capacity for human connection. The most profound experiences in our lives are built on the foundation of being truly seen and understood by others. And that foundation is laid one meaningful conversation at a time. Connection isn't a gift some people are born with. It's a practice. And your practice starts now. Go out there and connect. Thanks for spending this time with me. If this was valuable, give this video a like, and please share the best or most memorable question someone has ever asked you in the comments below. I read them all, and it's a great way for all of us to learn from each other. Until next time.